The House Rules Committee came to a complete standstill as House Republican leaders worked to contain rank-and-file Republicans and their Democratic allies, all clamoring for a floor vote to compel the publication of materials related to the late and infamous Jeffrey Epstein. Well, as a result, House leadership announced the House would adjourn early for the August break. But will the Epstein issue be waiting for them in September? Joining me now to talk about this and much more, Florida Congressman Greg Steube, who is a member of the House Intel Committee. Congressman Steube, welcome back to Washington Watch. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, good to see you, Tony.
So, surprised that the House is going to adjourn early and head home over the Epstein files?
I mean, I'm not surprised because the calendar this Congress has been so up in turmoil. Last week we were supposed to be gone on Thursday. We stayed through the night. We were voting at 1 o'clock in the morning to get that appropriations bill out last week. All the while, this Epstein stuff has been around the peripheral of all these issues. I support making transparency and opening this up, but you have to be mindful of victims. There's a lot of laws protecting the victims, even if those victims are now adults. There's still protection for those victims, and you have victims' rights. So any release would have to take into consideration not alluding to any of the victims of any of this case unless they want to willfully come forward, but you obviously haven't seen that. So there's going to be a lot of care that's going to have to be given for the release of these files, but I support it. I don't understand why. I certainly don't want to leave and give up CRAs that we could abolish Biden-era rules from his agency. I think that's important work for the American people, and it's sad to see us get sidetracked on something like this.
So let's go back. I mean, I wasn't paying a whole lot of attention to this, but I mean, it has become probably more of an issue because of the transparency issue, and there was promises that it was going to be released. Attorney General Pam Bondi originally said she had a list of names on her desk, and then all of a sudden it doesn't have a list. Can Congress, I mean, I know that we often see redacted documents released all the time. Is it not possible to release documentation with victims redacted, and we're only looking at the other facts in this case?
Yeah, you can, but whatever we do in the House obviously has to go to the Senate as well. And there's other, I mean, I don't know if there's pieces of this that are classified. I don't know what the situation as it relates to that. If the bill comes to the floor to release Epstein files, I would support that. I would vote for that. And then let the Attorney General make the decision on what can legally be released and what cannot be legally released. It seems as though the admin, like she's filed a motion to unseal court records. Part of that is the challenge because you have records that have been sealed by courts. So she has to go through that process and unseal some of these records. The challenge at the House has been Democrats are filing motions in rules, amendments on previous question type bills that would then open up these rules and open up these bills for Democrat amendment on other issues. We saw that last week, where they could have amended anything they wanted on all of these different things that we were trying to get done. And obviously, they have a nefarious type of intent to do that. And we have Republicans that obviously support opening the Epstein files that are voting with them on these things, so it makes votes very challenging.
Right. So put the Democrats aside for a moment because they're seizing on a political moment. I mean,
100%.
Because if they wanted to, they had 4 years when Joe Biden had control of everything, and they could have released these documents had they wanted to. But they wouldn't release any documents. I mean, we saw the Republicans trying to get information about the laptop, Hunter Biden's laptop, all this other information that they were sitting on. But I want to ask you this question. Put the Democrats aside. What are you hearing from your constituents? Are they concerned about transparency? Do they want to see what was in there? Do they think this information should be released?
Yeah, and from conservative circles, I think you're absolutely seeing that, which is why if the Massey discharge comes to the floor, I would vote yes. If there's a resolution that comes to the floor to release these files, I would vote yes. I think the American people deserve transparency, and I think that's what we in Congress should do. So I don't understand why we're not going to a vote on this, because just delaying it until September, I don't think, like you said, I don't think this issue is going away. I think we're going to be dealing with this after the August recess. Maybe there will be more information released by DOJ at that point. I assume so. We've also heard today that they're going to interview Ms. Maxwell, so there might be some information that they release from that. So all of these things will happen by the time we get back, but that's not going to change the fact that Mr. Massey's discharge petition will have cured, and he can force a vote on that by just calling it up.
So let me go back. You're right. Ms. Maxwell was, there's been word now that she will be brought to testify. Will that be open? Will that be open to the public, or is that going to be behind closed doors?
So there's two things going on. You got DOJ that is going to interview her for possible criminal issues as a witness, like she's a witness to possible criminal activity. Then you have the Oversight Committee in the House that has voted to subpoena her. That could take place behind closed doors in the form of a deposition, or that could take place in an open forum. It would turn into a complete and utter circus if you had her in an open committee room. But certainly if you brought her in a deposition, which we've done countless times with different individuals, she's under oath. You can ask her questions on but both sides have the opportunity to ask her those questions. So you've got two different things going on with her. One is on the DOJ side and one is the congressional side. I don't know Chair Comer's plans in the next month, maybe bringing her in as soon as possible now that the subpoena has been passed through the committee. I'm not sure what his plans are as far as timeline, but you got both DOJ now willing to talk to her, and now you've got a subpoena from the Oversight Committee coming.
Well, I mean, given where the public is at on this, I think a deposition behind closed doors in Congress would not resolve the angst that's out there in demanding for transparency.
Yeah, but you could release the depo, which is just typical. You would release the deposition after the statements. The challenge with doing the open every 5-minute type hearing is that every member only has 5 minutes.
Right. It's
Being a lawyer
circus.
and putting my litigation hat on in a deposition, I can go down a line of questioning for 2 hours if I want to. I can question her for 8 hours if I want to, instead of being in a committee type environment where each member only gets 5 minutes in a shortened period of time. It's much more difficult to really dig in to certain subject matters when you have that 5-minute every member type thing. People are just trying to get on TV and get a clip.
Right.
Instead of sitting in a deposition with lawyers and walking through deep questionings on specific issues.
Well, I think if that is the route, and you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the open hearings become more of a circus. It's it's kind of a reality TV gone bad. But the public, I don't think you're going to have to be very clear up front if this is done that the full transcript will be released, unedited transcript, because there's just no trust, unfortunately, in government today, because we've seen it even related to the Epstein, where there's elements of the footage of his jail cell that was edited, that people don't trust what they're seeing. So we've got to be very, very candid and transparent. And I think that's what the angst is really all about.
Yeah, which is why I would support making all of it of what you can legally make and disclose to the public. I don't know why that hasn't been done. Like you said, AG Bondi has talked about releasing specific items, and then those items weren't released. So you're right. The American public is pretty frustrated at this point with the administration, because they said they were going to declassify and make public a lot of this information, and it hasn't happened. So hopefully when we get back, we'll get to vote on this. I think we should just get it out of the way now and move on with the business of the House, so we can undo a lot of Biden-era administrative rules. But that's where we're at, and maybe in the next month or so, some of these depositions will occur.
All right. Well, Congressman Steube, I want to move on here to something else, and that is, you talked about the business of the House. The House was already down to very few legislative days when it comes to the end of the fiscal year. I know the House has been working on appropriations with a whole week now basically cut out from next week. Highly unlikely that the House is going to be able to advance the appropriations bills in time to meet that deadline.
Yeah, and then you're going to have a real challenge, because members like me voted for the last CR under the guise that this is just a short-term fix so that we have time to go through the appropriations process coming into the end of September. And now here we are coming into the end of September, where more than likely the appropriations process will not be complete, and you're going to have to do another CR. I never voted for a CR until President Trump asked us to vote for this last one to give them time to do what they need to do. We've passed 2 appropriations bills on the House House floor. I don't even believe the Senate has started their process of going through the appropriations process. There's 9 more to go. There's 11 of them. So it usually takes about a week per appropriations bill, and obviously only 4 weeks left when we get back from the recess. That makes that timeline very difficult to achieve. And then we're going to be backed into a corner with the CR. And then the decision as a lawmaker is going to be, do you vote for a continuing resolution to keep funding at the same levels it's been since Nancy Pelosi, or do you vote no against a CR and shut down the government? And both of those decisions obviously have implications and ramifications to it. I don't want to see the government shut down. At the same time, I don't think we should be continuing this level of spending that we have had, because Washington has a spending problem and we're $37 trillion in debt. So that's going to be the challenge at the end of September if we can't get these appropriations bills across the finish line.
I think the argument that Russ Vought, OMB director, would say is that they can do the rescissions, which you saw, you passed through the House, Senate did. A little timid on the Senate side in terms of cutting, but I think they would advocate that is the alternative. All right, Congressman, we're up against a break. Greg, we're going to come back. I want to talk about Iran. I want to talk about your legislation that would give those who have been taken advantage of by the gender mutilation factories that have popped up all across the country a right of recourse. We're going to talk about that and more coming up right after the break. Congressman Steube, thanks for sticking with us through the break. All right, before I get to the bill that you've introduced, I just want to get your response to Iran's foreign minister saying that they will not give up their pursuit of enriched uranium. I mean, after all the experience from the United States and Israel, they're not backing away.
Yeah, well, that's a problem because Iran cannot be able to obtain a nuclear weapon. And if you enrich across a certain percent, you're not using it for civilian purposes. You're using it for nuclear ambitions from an offensive purpose, a military purpose. And the United States has said unequivocally, and this is a Republican and a Democrat position. Joe Biden said this, Obama said this, Clinton said this. America is not going to let Iran obtain a nuclear weapon. They chant death to America. They chant death to Israel. Israel is obviously not going to allow that to occur as well. So for them, after everything that has happened, after Trump bombed some of their nuclear facilities, for them to say they're not going to give up enrichment is a challenging perspective for them to put themselves in. It puts themselves in a box where the rest of the world, other than China and Russia, obviously don't think that they should have a nuclear weapon, and then puts us in a posture where we have to defend against if they take steps to enrich uranium further than what they're doing, or they take steps to put themselves on a path for a nuclear warhead.
Now, they admitted that the bombing from the United States and Israel has done serious damage to their capabilities, but in their communications regarding the snapback from the JCPOA and the United Nations Security Council putting sanctions back on them, they threatened retaliation. What are they capable of doing?
Well, that's a great question, and that's a question that we on the Intelligence Committee have been asking our analysts for that type of information of, okay, what has been destroyed, what hasn't been destroyed, what kind of timeline are we looking at for them to be able to recur some of these enrichment proceedings? What does that look like from a military perspective? What does that look like from a defensive perspective? I don't know if anybody knows the answers to those questions, but obviously we have intel, they have intel, the Israelis have intel, and we're going to make sure that the Israelis and ourselves are defended against any attacks if it gets to that point. But we should sanction them as much as possible. If we can cut them off economically, then you're keeping them from being able to do a lot of the things that they can do because they don't have the resources to do it. That's what was so dangerous about the Biden regime, was they opened up billions of dollars of revenue to Tehran based on a policy decision and releasing sanctions. Well, all of those should be reinstituted as much as we possibly can to cut them off economically, and they financially won't be able to do the type of things that they want to do.
Well, I also think that could help facilitate a regime change as well.
regime change, new leadership, for them to realize that they're going to have to come to the table and negotiate a peace treaty that does not put them on the path for a nuclear weapon, a peace treaty that is a non-nuclear Iran, which is what the president wants, which is what Marco wants, which is what the world wants, frankly. Even other Arab nations don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon. So if it can bring them to the table to talk truly peace, and have a peace agreement put in place that doesn't allow them to get nuclear proliferation, then that would be a great step for them, America, our allies in the Middle East, and the world.
All right, Congressman Greg Steube, I want to move on to another topic. You were one of the first to address this gender ideology craziness. You did it on the House floor. And you had your Democratic colleagues come after you for addressing this issue. But earlier today, you introduced a bill addressing the medical centers that perform these so-called gender transition procedures on children. They're experimental, using drugs and irreversible surgeries, but you are giving those who are taking advantage of an opportunity to fight back, and I think it's going to send a message across America to those who are in this business.
Yeah, you're going to see, if this bill passes, you're going to see hospitals refuse to do this type of procedure. You're going to see medical professionals refuse to do any type of gender mutilation that has been going on in our country. I mean, think if you're one of these minors that was talked into doing something like this, an irreversible physical surgery, and then you become 18 and you become an adult and you realize that you made a mistake and your parents who authorized this decision for you made a mistake and it's irreversible, you can't go back. So what our bill would do, myself and Senator Hawley, is allow for you to have a civil cause of action, a private right of cause of action against the doctors, the physicians, the hospitals, the health networks that allowed this to occur. You will see the behavior change very, very quickly if hospitals believe that they're going to be held civilly liable for doing these type of things, because Lord knows what a jury would award if a minor was convinced to do this type of surgery and it is irreversible. So I think you would see the behavior change. You already alluded to the fact that some of these hospitals are already changing their policy. I think a lot of that is because President Trump is in the White House. There's different leadership in HHS, in our health agencies. There's different leadership in Congress. So the direction of the country obviously does not support this, unlike the Biden administration, and is going back to, frankly, things that are much more reasonable than allowing our minors to do these type of procedures.
Yeah, I mean, and I've been talking with trial lawyers. I think they'll be all over this when this, if this passes. Very quickly, got about a minute left. You did another bill yesterday, Restoring Biological Truth to the Workplace Act. This would affect actually a pastor in Baton Rouge, bivocational pastor, fired from the local library for refusing to use preferred pronouns. Your legislation would address that. I got about 45 seconds.
Yeah, and we've seen this in the education realm where teachers are, because of their faith and their biblical values, refuse to refer to a young boy as a she, and all of these different issues that the far left has taken us to this. So this bill would address these issues in moving forward, and I really hope that the House can move on these two different pieces of legislation and we can send them to the Senate.
Well, we'll put them up on our website and encourage people to weigh in on it. As always, Greg, appreciate your leadership on these important issues.
Anytime. Good to see you.